I'm going to tell you guys right now, if you have not seen Multiverse of Madness, why we're talking about this book, you might want to take a step, go get something to drink or eat, get a snack, or mute us for the next 5 minutes or so while we talk about this book, because there will be spoilers. All right. I let it be known. We're moving on. Okay. All right, Bronze Age. We got New Avengers number 7. First appearance of the Illuminati. We're going to look at this. We're going to look at the numbers first. So a 9.8 fair market value during the time of the trailer. So that 2-month period when we got the couple of trailers and everything. These are fair market values. So I took the average of all the sales. We're not focused on a high or a low or anything like that. During that period, 9.8 fair market value was at $575. Current fair market value over the last few weeks, $232. That's a 60% decrease in value. The most recent sale didn't even hit over 200. It hit 193. Now, this goes to something that I want to talk about. And we kind of brought it up about how long are these characters going to last, right? So we know the Illuminati shows up and they're like a spoof. They're a bit of comedic spoof and a spoof for us to see how badass Wanda is. And look, for me, I thought it was super awesome. It's a multiverse. We can bring some of these characters back properly. It was a nod. I mean, you had the the 92 X-Men animated series music come in when you have Professor X roll in. Freaking awesome. And then Wanda goes ham.
Yeah.
No more Illuminati. Everyone that was paying $575 for this book in a 9.8, you can't even sell it now and get half your money back. Bronze Age. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, this is that book that I saw a mile away as something that I wanted to steer clear of. I mean, everything, price is always a factor, right? Like if I was in a LCS and that trailer had come out and I saw they had this book marked at $5 or $10,
right?
I probably would have bought it because I would have been interested in maximizing some return on that book or whatever. I have no qualms with that. But pretty much everywhere had this book, raw, you were seeing it 30 to 60 or more. It just screamed of a book that, if you were getting ready to watch Doctor Strange, what did you think was going to happen? Like the Illuminati was going to show up and they were going to be a driving force for the next 10 movies? Maybe, but I didn't see it as being a thing. And also it's a group, and groups just aren't as easy to get behind for the most part compared to characters. Characters are what draws people for the most part. And of course, there's some amazing characters that are part of the Illuminati or could have been part of the Illuminati, depending on, what you thought the group makeup was going to be, right? But that to me just says those characters that you're thinking about matter more than this book necessarily for the long-term health and future of the MCU. So I think you really had to kind of ask yourself, what were you hoping to do with this book? And of course, when you talk about any of these books, I do want to kind of, put a shout out to that collector that's buying this and they're not thinking about reselling it. They're not thinking about flipping it. They're not thinking about speccing on it. I love the Illuminati and I slept on that book. I get it. And I don't want to down, because that can be a real kind of pain you feel if you overpay for a book that you love. But maybe that's a learning lesson for the future, kind of wait on some of these books, because I bet you long-term, a lot of them drop, because I've done the research. A lot of them drop long-term.
Yeah. And hey, patience. I just dropped the video the other day about, 5 tips to save you money and to better strengthen your collection. And number 1 was patience. Yeah. We get into this FOMO, but we don't realize that, look, sometimes you miss the boat. But sometimes, especially in this day and age of the spec market, if you really cared about Illuminati and you simply missed it and you saw this book booming, wait. Because look, if they ended up sticking around and being something, the book may not have had a 60% drop, but it probably would have leveled out or even cooled off a little bit because the movie's going to be gone and we may not see them for another year or two. So again, you just be very careful when you think you missed out, because waiting could pay dividends, because this is a 60% drop. This isn't even indicative of the dipping market here and there. We talked about the market just kind of leveling off a little bit, because remember, this book boomed after the leveling off of the market. And now it's already dropped 60% because guess what? People went and saw the movie. They were just there for 2 minutes and boom, Wanda had her way with them. And then no more. Oh, shoot. So you know what these flippers are thinking? Now I got to sell it so I can at least get some money back. And now supply is way up here and demand is way down here and nobody wants to touch it. So there you go. So this is a case of F your spec, because everyone's getting hyped about something coming, but then it wasn't what you thought it would be, right? Yeah. Blink of an eye, it's gone. So
bonus tip on this one, if you're thinking now like you are that collector that wants this book, even 98 232, that recent sale 193, little advice, go look for a raw that somebody's trying to move to some really high grade and get your own 98 for a cheaper discount.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought that up, Bronze Age, because I've never bought a 9.8 book in my life. I don't think I ever will. And especially for modern books, I always recommend go. You could buy like 3 books of these raw that might be 9.8 potential, press and clean them, send them to CGC, CBS, CBCS, whatever. And even if one comes back, you could probably make money doing it that way. So absolutely. Let's move on to this next book. This is very similar to where this was a confirmation. The Timekeepers. It was confirmed, but if you watch Loki, they were confirmed, but then they didn't turn out to be what we thought they would be, similar to the Illuminati. They were robots, and they broke the robots. No more Timekeepers. So this one really boomed. West Coast Avengers 62, first appearance of the Timekeepers. Average fair market raw during the show was 23. Current average is $7. And I'm not helping myself because I got one for sale right now. I got $10 on it. It's a higher grade.
I got one for $9 if you get. No, I'm just kidding.
70% decrease in value. So again, a very similar thing where we get so hyped. Anything. And I mean, how many people really cared about the Timekeepers or even knew about the Timekeepers before the Loki show? And when they turn out to not be what they were, everyone was like, oh, well, there's nothing there.
Bingo. Like, I mean, just try to imagine yourself ever like uttering the words, man, the Timekeepers were so cool.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Okay. Again, and I'm being cynical now. I talked about that earlier. I am being cynical, but what were the odds that they were going to come out and you're going to be like, that's really cool? There's a pretty slim chance. Like, what was the best case scenario,
I mean, the best case scenario, I guess, they were not robots and they were the real things. Right?
They actually were in the show. Yeah.
Right. But to your point, it's like, even then,
yeah, it's
like, and that's where it's like, seriously, when we see, we're not even Betty Brant or Ben Urich. We're talking about some random guy that works at the Daily Bugle that was in the back of a couple panels in some Spider-Man book, shows up, or we think it's that guy. He was never named in the comic books. It's just this guy, maybe he has blonde hair and he's an older guy. And we see in a trailer some blonde-haired older guy like carrying papers at the Daily Bugle in the back in a Spider-Man trailer. Oh, there's that blonde guy that works it's not even some character that we know that works at the Daily Bugle. And we're going off and finding their first appearance and spending, it's increasing 5-10% or 10 times over, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, at what point do we, and that's where I go back to where I asked you the question, Bronze Age, and I asked everyone here in the chat. At what point do we go back to where I saw Spider-Man on the big screen and it brought so much to me that I went back to the comics? I saw Thanos on the big screen and wow, I never cared about Guardians of the Galaxy, but I seen him on the big screen. I'm like, man, I got to go find those comic books. At what point are we just seeing the random guy at the Daily Bugle and specking on it?
Yep.
And spending crazy money just because we saw them in a trailer or we thought they were going to be in a TV show or a movie. It's crazy. It's crazy.
I mean, I guess they could have been really cool time cops.
What if the timekeepers were Sandra Bullock and Sylvester Stallone?
Oh, you want Demolition Man on this?
Demolition
Dude.
Man.
Well, if they got Wesley Snipes in there, oh my God.
That'd be dope. All right, guys, we're gonna move on. Oh, let's talk about it. We were talking about this book. Let's look at it. So now this is different. The first two we used were these spec showed up in the TV shows in the movie, but they just didn't pan out. This is one that was what? Rumor, right? Superior Iron Man #1. The first time we see the Superior Iron Man, 9.8 sold for $500 on 5/2. Keep that date in mind because that was what? Right before the release of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what happened after that? No 9.8s have sold. Average fair market value raw after the trailer for a matter of 2 months, $45. Current average fair market raw since the release of the film, $17. That is a 62% decrease in value. Bronze Age, how you doing on those two books?
Well, it's the beauty of it, like what we were talking about earlier, right? It is the flip side of the fact that, like, I don't mind that this book is in my collection. And it also, when I say I bought it at the F&B that it was going for at that time, this isn't when it got to like 40 or 50 bucks. This is when it was like, I think it was like at 20, 25. Yeah, that's definitely more than this book raw was worth at the time. In actuality, now that we know in hindsight he's never coming, or he didn't come in that movie at least. Yeah. But at the same time, I don't mind having this book. One of the two I bought was actually the Hastings variant, which is a chain of stores that I used to go to all the time. So that's the one that I was going to hold on to because I just thought it was cool. It's like I didn't have a Hastings variant in my collection. When I lived in Idaho, I went to that chain all the time, and I had like a lot of fond memories for it. So it's kind of like this weird part of my collection now that I can kind of own. But if that wasn't the case for me, boy, I'd be sitting on a couple of these books, and I'd be not too happy about it, man. Like if that's all there was to it. I mean, I guess here's the silver lining. It is kind of a cool storyline, but yeah, you got to be really careful with these. You could get hold. I think Reggie says you catch a brick sometimes, right? You could catch a brick on some of these if you're not careful and you're not really thinking about, when I go into this, do your research beforehand. Think about what the best and worst case scenario could be, and maybe where this is going to logically fall. And then if all that goes to pass, do you still want it in your collection? Do you still want to own that book? And are you comfortable with what you paid for it? All relative to price, of course.
Yep. Wise words. Absolutely. All right. Next up, folks, we got X-Men #4. This is similar. So this is similar to Superior Iron Man. This is first appearance of Omega Red. This pertains to the Falcon and Winter Soldier show. Huge talk that we're gonna see mutants. Also Black Widow. It was for both. We had Omega Red, thinking that Black Widow might introduce Omega Red, and then it was or was it I forget which one came out first. No, I forget.
It was Falcon.
Falcon and Winter Soldier came out first, right? Because Black Widow got postponed.
Yep.
So we thought we might see Omega Red in either of those properties. Didn't happen. So I took numbers from the show's release leading into that summer. And the fair market value for a 9.8 was, again, this is average. I mean, this had books selling for $500. There was a couple that hit like around the $500 mark, but those are highs and outliers.
Mm-hmm.
Fair market value 365, current 184. That's a 50% decrease. Similar trend with the raws. Average raw during the show 65, average raw current fair market value 32, 51%. So let's talk about this Bronze Age in a little bit of a different perspective, though.
Yeah.
You got burned here. I mean, you never know. Tom Cruise, he might show up as Iron Man one day. You never know. We got the multiverse.
Never know.
But when you look at a character like Omega Red, I love Omega Red. I think Omega Red's a dope character. We could still get Omega Red in the MCU. So I think that kind of sheds at least a little perspective on looking at where this book has been and where it is right now. Yeah.
Well, and this is another one that I have some personal history with because, I'm an X-Men guy. That's my thing. And, this run of X-Men was my bread and butter for sure. I've definitely gone back and done a bunch of Uncannies and a bunch of other stuff that I love from before this. But this was when I was in my prime as a kid, buying, collecting. I had, a childhood copy of this. Rumors were going around. I was lucky to find a bunch of copies of this at a good price. I got most of them slabbed.
Nice.
I was sitting on, I think I had at one point like 4 9/8s, a couple 9/6s, a couple 9/4s. One of those was a newsstand. And honestly, like they came back because, this was when CGC was taking forever to get books back. I've honestly still done pretty well moving some of those. And I'm holding on to some of them because Omega Red, this is that flip side. Omega Red is a cool character.
Yes.
He has a lot to like. Now, he's not a world-breaking character.
Right.
He's not a major villain, but people, if you're a Wolverine fan and you think about Wolverine in the MCU, I could definitely see a Wolverine versus Omega Red fight being really fun to portray on screen, right? So that could still happen. And even if that never happens, he's a cool character that some people still really appreciate. So this is one of those scenarios where I think you're doing a little bit better off if you had invested in this. Maybe not at the peak. You're never going to feel happy if you bought the peak and you're trying to sell at the dip, right? That's the worst case scenario. But there's a lot more potential here, at least. And then there's a lot more to feel better about if you got burned.
Yeah, I agree. And there's a couple of things, and we're going back to everything we talked about. One of them is the excitement. I think there would be, that real excitement for this character if we knew that they were coming. It would, like, if I got a trailer, especially if it involved Wolverine. I mean, if the X-Men, if there's no Wolverine yet, and we get introduced to Omega Red, still cool. If Wolverine is there, and even more. So as a fan, that kid in me is going to do exactly what you said. I'm going to be like, yo, let me go pull out my book and show it off. Like, there's that. Timekeepers, I don't know if there's anybody that could have said, oh my God, they were my favorite as a kid.
Yeah.
But there's also, there's that intrinsic value. This industry, see, look at the numbers right now. A 9.8 90s book selling for a fair market value average of 184 in a 9.8 is not a measly book. That's solid. That's a good price for a 9.8 book. Average raw,
still highly printed too,
and high, exactly. So this is a key book, and it's going to stay a key because people care about this character. Not as much.
Not only that, dude. Look at the cover; it's an awesome Jim Lee cover, right? Like,
absolutely. Yeah.
You can't lose with a good cover. Like, not completely, right? Like, because people are cover buyers. At the end of the day, that's book covers, comic book covers. That's what draws a lot of people in, even if the guts aren't even necessarily that exciting. And in this case, they actually were a good story still. So
absolutely, man. So I think, again, for all you watching, there's depth here. There's perspective. And like Bronze Age said, just to reiterate, it never feels good to buy the peak, especially on a dip. But it just goes to show, this is something that you could have really felt intrinsically connected to, patience can pay off. If you really cared about this character, because you could be buying it at half the price right now than buying it when all those rumors were circulating. So,
oh, and I gotta agree with chat here real fast. A couple people in chat calling out X-Men 5's cover. You're 100% right. X-Men 5 is a way better cover. It's iconic, but that would also be the first, like, maybe full cover appearance of Omega Red. Plus, this is my favorite thing about the book. It's first Maverick. I love Maverick.
Yeah. I have my own copy of X-Men 5, and I had to buy my son's copy because it was a better copy, and I wanted it so bad. I wanted a really near mint copy, so I had to buy it off of him.
Yeah, I've got a few just because I wanted that, that really high grade. So
awesome. All right, we got a couple more. So this is like the birth of it all right here. Mephisto. This is when I think we really saw it was the first show, WandaVision. First MCU property since COVID. And everyone said, Mephisto.
Mephisto's in the trees, man.
Silver Surfer number 3, first appearance. Let's look at these numbers. I did a couple of grades here. Similar trends. 7.0 during the show, 1380. Current 975. That's a 29% decrease in value.
Yep.
9.4, 6,840 right now, 5,130. That's a 25 decrease in value. Very similar decreases in the grades. Here's my thoughts on this. This is another thing. Mephisto could still show up. I think it's inevitable
100%.
that Mephisto is going to show up. Absolutely. I think Mephisto is a dope villain character. So there's a lot of that there too as well with this. This is a Silver Age book, Silver Age Key. WandaVision came out kind of at the beginning of that peak of that. Everyone's money was being put into comic books. We saw the peak of the entire market. To see this book dip 25 to 29%, to me, isn't very alarming, even with the crazy rumor mill and how crazy it was.
Yeah.
In the simple fact that it didn't pay off. So what's your thoughts there just on this book in looking at the rumors being so extreme, not paying off, and where this book's kind of sitting right now?
Well, and before I dive into my thoughts entirely, to echo somewhat you said, and then also to echo Swagglehouse in the comments over here said, the reality is you haven't lost anything until you sell. It's all unrealized. Timekeeper, Superior Iron Man, Illuminati, anything can still happen. And that, out of all the examples that he listed, you'll add this one in. This is probably still the most prime example of where we're I would say the likely meter that we're going to see Mephisto at some point is pretty high. I mean, you're talking about an established character. You could easily, maybe it wasn't WandaVision, but you could easily see Mephisto being like the puppet master pulling the strings in a Disney Plus show. He could carry a movie as a villain behind the scenes, very much like a Mysterio like character where it was an Agatha all along thing, right?
Yeah.
And I could see that happening for sure. And again, not only that, you can't. Well, I shouldn't say you can't. You really shouldn't lose, because you're talking about a well-respected, established Marvel villain that is of a vintage that's definitely going to carry weight going forward. He's had so many storylines that have been, fleshed out. And I think that's the kind of thing where it's like, if you're trying to sell me on a book to invest in, for example, I'm going to be way more attracted to this as kind of like the Apple of stocks, sort of in a way, maybe not the Apple, but it's up there, right? Like it's a proven property.
Right.
It's something that has that chance to go forward. And not only that, collectors 10, 20, 15 years from now are going to be looking for a book like this anyway.
Exactly. I think that's a key point right there, because you talk about risk and intrinsic values and everything. I have no doubt in my mind that this book, at some point in time in the future, even if Mephisto never shows up, that 7.0 hitting that 1380 mark, it's going to be there again. That 9.4 hitting that 6840 mark, it's going to be there again, because that's what Silver Age keys like this do no matter what. It might take a couple years if there's no spec movie hype around it, but it's going to get there because these books are going to continue to increase. So I absolutely agree with everything you said. Your assessment, I think, is spot on. And another one where you don't have to feel too bad, at a loss. It's like, I mean, you said Apple, but even Apple's down right now.
Right.
Hopefully you bought Apple 3, 4, 5 years ago. If you bought it though 2 years ago, you're probably in the red, but it's gonna bounce back and you're gonna be okay. And you haven't lost too much, So again, similar situation with Omega Red, but on a different level because you got to look at all the other intrinsic properties, being a Silver Age book instead of a 90s mass-produced book, and being a bit of a bigger character, obviously, than Omega Red here. But of course, you're putting more money down. You're already putting more money into this book, so that could be a little more risk for you if you're on a budget. But.
So Chris, I have a question for you real fast, man. So let's say you're the biggest Mephisto fan in the world, right? And let's say you've been dreaming of owning this first appearance of Mephisto for a long time. What do you do as a collector right now? Like, when are you timing your buy on this book, you think?
Well, you know what? This is a very good point, and I'm so glad you brought this up because I wanted to bring this up, and I don't know if I would have remembered. So, looking at these dips, right? Would it be good to buy right now? I mean, we could look at all of these and we could go through all of these. I would still stay away from this. Look, if you could find this book for $10 or under, hey, you know what? You're spending $10 on a couple ice cream cones these days. So this, again, hey, if I really like the Superior Iron Man character, and I could spend $20, not bad.
There's also another first appearance in Superior Iron Man too, like Abomination or something like that. I think a teen Abomination or whatever. So
for sure. And then again,
what I'm bringing to.
You can ask the same question here because all the things we talked about, it could be a decent time to buy. We don't have the X-Men yet. We know they're coming. Now it's a matter of measuring the yardstick, so to say. If you get, or should I say, it's a teeter-totter, measuring, you're walking the teeter-totter.
Mm-hmm.
Are you on one end, when it teeters one way, it's downward. When it teeters the other way, it's upward. Where are we? Where's the weight right now? Are we still more, to where we have wiggle room to where it's going to tip down more before it starts tipping upwards, or are we now kind of standing in the middle and about to start tipping it upwards again? You never really know. For me, for this one, maybe I'd wait some time still because I think we are still so far out from X-Men. With this one though, and this has been one that I've eyeballed over the last couple of years, I just don't have the budget for it. For me, as a collector though, I'm looking at low grade raw. I don't care. If I could find a 2.0, 3.0 in this book for a good deal raw, it might be a good time to buy, right? Look at this 7.0, for under $1,000. If I had $1,000 to spend and it's not breaking my bank and I'm okay with spending that, I wouldn't think that it's a bad decision to pay under $1,000, just under $1,000 for this book in a 7.0 right now. I think if we see Mephisto, it could be sooner than later. I think Silver Surfer is going to be coming into the MCU at some point. So you got these early Silver Surfer, Silver Age Volume 1 books as well. So that means something. So yeah, to answer your question, I'm not saying it's the best time because you never know the future of any market,
right?
But it's definitely a much better time than it was a year ago.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. I'm not really looking to pick up this book just based on the scratch that would be involved and to dive into it. But I think I would definitely want to hold off for a little bit, just in my personal opinion. I have a feeling we're probably up for a little bit more downturn in the market. Maybe not a lot or anything. Like I'm tend to be more like we're probably in a correction kind of a thing here than anything else. But it is interesting, right? Because like I think what project would he likely appear in? Maybe the Agatha show. Mm-hmm. You know, you got a while before anything's going to happen, though. I think so. There's no harm in waiting. But I love your answer. Thanks, man.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right, guys. We have one more book, and this kind of plays into something that we kind of brought up earlier. And yeah, Ghost Rider 28. This is the first cameo of the Midnight Suns. You know, 31's their first full appearance, but this one was the money book. You know, I do. Yeah. Is this one the first appearance of Lilith, or is that 31? Is it this one?
31, I think.
31, yeah. So it's very interesting that this book was the money book. And as you all know, it was Geeks Worldwide. Geeks Worldwide, and only Geeks Worldwide came out saying,
"Oh, sorry, it is this book. My bad. It is this."
Lilith in this one too. Okay, good. Yeah. Okay. So Geeks Worldwide came out, and like I said, they have this website. It looks pretty professional. There's like no traffic to the site at all. They're on Twitter. A couple people are on Twitter, and they don't have like nobody likes not many people like their stuff, and they don't really have a following on Instagram either, from what I remember. And they said, confirmed. It is confirmed that we are getting a Midnight Suns movie from Marvel Studios, and it is confirmed that they said it was gonna start filming. I think they said in fall of 2021 for a 2022 release. You guys could probably go, unless they pulled it. I still have screenshots, by the way. I should have pulled them up. When I called them out on it, and you know what made this worse is that big YouTube channels that have 500,000 subscribers, like Cosmic Wonder, even Everything Always, I believe it was, that's got like 1 million. They ran with it, and it's clickbait because they put it in their titles, Midnight Suns confirmed. And then when they do their video, they say, sources say, but their sources are a source that isn't a credible source.
Yep.
And people feed off of this and eat it right up. Now, I said it back. I did a video for this right away and came out and called them out. Actually, I'm mistaken, guys. I take this back. It was Geeks Worldwide that did the World War Hulk. I apologize. Wow. It was Geeks Worldwide that did World War Hulk for the 2021 with the 2022. It was that hashtag. Same thing though. I'm not going back on my words. Same idea. I'm not saying that who knows. Now the chances of a World War Hulk happening are even more slim. They've already dived into that story, part of that story arc
quite a bit
with the rights with Universal. I don't know. The problem is that they said it was confirmed and it wasn't. And now we're halfway through 2022 and we realize that they were wrong. It was that hashtag show that did the Midnight Suns. But the same idea, they have like no following at all. And I believe like they have like maybe I think 20,000 subscribers on YouTube. They maybe bought, you could do that. You could buy subscribers. I'm not going to get into that. But they get no views. They get like 40, 70 views on a video. But this video had like a couple thousand, but it's only because you get these 400,000, 500,000, 1 million subscriber YouTubers like Cosmic Wonder and Everything Always running with what that hashtag show talked about. And they said similar thing. Confirmed. Marvel Studios confirmed. Our inside sources confirm. Who's your source? I'm not sitting here saying that a Midnight Suns TV show or movie can't happen or won't happen. It would be awesome if it happened. and it could very well happen. We got Blade coming, you know. I'm sure we'll get Ghost Rider at some point in time.
Well, and it's important to point out that part of what got this book going too was the video game. That's part of what really that was to me the spark to the gasoline for this one. And that was one of the stranger things to me, because it's like, when has a video game really ever moved the needle on a book long term at all?
Well, Miles Morales, the Spider-Man video game, I think is the only other example that comes to my mind.
Yeah, but even that,
I think there's more validity there, though, because that's a whole different kind of beast.
I think, well, yeah, but see, like, you could say it's because of the video game with Miles Morales. You could do the same thing for this book, but it's man, that character has so much more potential on the big screen long term, I think. So,
and there was so much more going on at once. There was Into the Spider-Verse, the announcement of the video game. There was so much going on, and that's I think that deep love for the character, and like you said, the future potential. But with this book, but I watched it. I remember when this happened last year, and I tracked the numbers. After that hashtag show released their video, nothing moved on the market and sales. It was when Everything Always and Cosmic Wonder and all those other YouTubers talked about it. Once their videos were released, then they went and people started buying up this book, and the price shot up like that. And I watched it happen. I was looking at the sales dates in terms of the videos releases. So looking at it, we're going to look at these numbers now. 9.8 fair market value. Sorry, that's not during the show. I apologize. That's when this rumor hit. $381. Current 9.8, 165. That's a 57% decrease in value. And I think because a lot of people realize that we're over a year out now since I think this happened, and there's been no official word. There's been no follow-up. And this is my problem with scoopers is this. When we finally get an announcement from Midnight Suns or a real Easter egg or something that shows that they're happening, those scoopers are going to come out and say, see, I was right. No, you weren't. You just threw, like my partner Jeff from Comic Book Canada says, you're throwing, monkey poo at the wall, hoping that it'll stick.
And a broken clock's right twice a day anyway.
I mean, right. So, it's like inevitable that a lot of these things are going to happen. You didn't call it. You were just on your BS. So, I think this is one of the biggest. We looked at all these different things. Spec that didn't pan out. Rumors that never happened. And then this is rumor mixed with really bad sources driving the market with false information that drives those rumors to almost, in my humble opinion, an unethical level. But and that's why I put this book last, because I think out of all of these, this is, I think, the biggest red flag is a book like this. Yeah,
absolutely. And I mean, I want to point out one of the comments I just scroll by from Killheart Comics. There was the Morbius spec also made this book jump, and that's the other thing to think about is not, we talked about it a little bit with kind of that the timekeepers, and it doesn't really pan out the way you expect. But like, also, it could be the character you really expect. They could be hitting the big screen in a major motion picture, and people could not like it, and you could get holding something that just no one cares about. Now, it's not the first appearance of Morbius, but it goes along with that. Like, that's, all this fuel to the fire, and we look at it, and then it's like, well, is it going to be any good? Because I think that whether or not you agree with this, I think most of us can admit that MCU isn't necessarily what it was when it was firing on all cylinders and you had Avengers coming out. I mean, there's been stumbling blocks all along the way, and I think people kind of forget about some of those stumbling blocks. But there's been a lot of criticism levied towards MCU projects recently. I think that it's kind of fair to say that maybe the MCU, in a lot of collectors' minds anyway, might be in a little bit of a slump itself, and that is something to be super careful about when you're thinking about these books. Really have done your research, really be prepared to hold on to that book if it doesn't, what you're hoping to come to fruition doesn't come to fruition right away, and kind of be mindful of what's going to happen to that book in the future if that doesn't come to pass.